We have a significant event in our district this year, the 100th anniversary. And to say a few words, not just about that, but to also acknowledge that, I'd like to call upon Rotary Director Bryn Stiles.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting my instructions as I go. As Robin indicated earlier this evening when he said this was going to be a celebration tonight, and it really is a celebration. It's a celebration of the conference you've had, and it's been I don't think I've had so many tears and laughters in one day as I've had today. Just an incredible event, and Pat, thank you for putting that together. Just a great event. And I do want to thank District Governor Pat and the Rotary Club of Calgary, represented here tonight by President-elect Ron, for giving me the opportunity to say a few words on the 100th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Calgary. Now, there's several members of the Rotary Club of Calgary here. One of them is a District Governor-elect whose name I won't mention. And I said to him, well, what number are you in the Rotary world? Because in Rotary back then, when clubs came in, as you came into Rotary, that became your club number. And I heard everything from about the 300th club to the 900th club. But the consensus was they were about the 314th club to join Rotary. But I think it would be very hard within Canada to find a club that has had the influence that the Rotary Club of Calgary has had, both in Canada and internationally. Many of the first clubs, the first 100 clubs in Rotary, like this prestige of coming into Rotary. It's sort of like coming over on the Mayflower. You're one of the first 100 clubs, or if you're from Australia, you're on one of the convict ships that came to Australia, which has now become a real prestige thing in Australia. But I think if you were to take the Rotary Club of Calgary and rank it within the first 100 clubs, if you could do that, it would definitely rank at least in the top 10, if not the first club. From the very beginning, the Rotary Club of Calgary was a leader. And I think we're all familiar with the achievements, and there was a award. You're right, it is scary when you look at yourself. I won't look up too often. I think we're all familiar, and there was an award today for James Davidson Membership Awards. And James Davidson was known as the Marco Polo of Rotary because of his extension of Rotary specifically into Southeast Asia and Australia. The club has been a catalyst in creating and developing not only Rotary leaders, but community leaders as well. 5 of its members have been RI directors. James Davidson, as I mentioned, Jeffrey Lydiot, Glenn Peacock, of course, our most famous or most favorite one, Curly Galbraith, and Bill Gant. Many more of the members of the Rotary Club of Calgary have been governors of District 5360 or its predecessors, whatever numbers that district was. But the club has also developed community leaders as well. Many of the members have been involved politically in the municipal, provincial, and federal politics. The Rotary Club of Calgary has a long relationship with the Calgary Stampede, one of the world's most famous events. And the club has now partnered with the Calgary Flames and formed the Flames Foundation that is doing tremendous work with healthcare in Alberta. When you talk to Rotarians from around the world who attend conventions, and there's actually a group in Rotary called the Rotary Convention Attenders Fellowship, and you ask them, what is the best convention ever? And they say the Calgary Convention in 1996, by far, was the best convention ever. And although the Rotary Club... I'm sorry, Bob Scott is giving me a little bit of trouble here. But I would like to encourage the Rotarians from Alberta, because I'm sure you're aware, in 2018, the Rotary International Convention is going to be held in Ontario, and in Toronto, and we expect your support for that event as well. When the Rotary Club of Calgary was formed in the 1900s, Rotary was booming. Calgary at that time had a population of about 50,000 people living in Calgary, and the membership dues in 1914 in the Rotary Club of Calgary were $5. Now, due to the wonders of Google, I said, well, what would that be due to inflationary values today? Today, it would be $120. I don't think you could join the Rotary Club of Calgary for $120 annually today. In that time, in 1914, internationally, many clubs were being organized right at that same time, but there was not the communication ability that we have available to us today. Next week, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to the 100th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And it is recognized as the 101st Rotary Club in the Rotary world. How would you like to be the 101st? Not the 100th, but the 101st Rotary Club. Now, the interesting thing about that is that back then, when they were chartering Rotary clubs, they didn't have the communications, as I indicated, and many clubs were starting to get organized, but they couldn't get their paperwork in quick enough. So there were actually 4 clubs whose paperwork came in at the same time. And I think they literally put their names in a hat and drew them out. The 98th, 99th, 100th, and 101st. The Rotary Club of Scranton missed being the 100th club by 1 ticket out of a hat. It's going to be fun when I'm there in a few weeks. Imagine how it was to try and spread the word of Rotary back in the 1900s. Imagine today there are over 34,000 Rotary clubs. It's been suggested, and I'm not sure if they've done this in District 5360, that we should do a Rotary family tree of how clubs have been chartered, who chartered who, where did they come from. And I would think that if you looked at the Rotary Club of Calgary, it would be the great-great-great-grandpappy of many clubs extending throughout this district and over into Southeast Asia and into Australia. If I was to list all the contributions and its support to local endeavors that the club has done, it would be redundant. They know what they have done, and I think most people in District 5360 know that as well. To try and list them all and to try to give them any special significance would be almost impossible. Rotary's own history is filled of stories and programs and projects that have been the idea of 1 or 2 people, as I mentioned maybe a little bit yesterday. Youth Exchange started in 1927 with the idea of 1 person, a Rotarian in Denmark. How many hundreds of thousands of students have done Youth Exchange since then? The idea of 1 person. But when we look at our history of Rotary, we have the glamorous history. And there were 2 events that happened within about 2 years of each other. One that we get a lot of recognition for, and one that is perhaps the history that we're not quite so proud of. As we all know, in about 1985, Rotary started or embarked on the effort to eradicate polio in the world. And we are almost there, as we heard from Bob Scott just yesterday. But it's from history that we also learn of our mistakes. And one of those was mentioned a little earlier today, and that was that Rotary was reluctant to allow women to join. Rotary had to be taken to the Supreme Court of the United States to force them to allow women to join. And it was not a woman who forced it. You may not be aware that it was in 1978 in Duarte, California, that a Rotary Club allowed a woman to join. And they were told by Rotary International to not allow that. And the club said, no, we are going to let this woman stay. The Rotary International disbarred the club, removed its charter. And it was the Rotary Club of Duarte, California, who actually took Rotary International to the Supreme Court of the United States to force the issue. My own club did not have a woman until 1994 when three of us, myself and two other people, proposed 3 women. When we proposed 3 women, we lost 20% of our membership. As I understand, you can say that again, we didn't want them anyway. The Rotary Club of Calgary, near as I can figure out, their first women joined in about 1996. The good news is that Rotary would not exist as strongly as it is today if it would exist at all like it is today if we'd not allowed women to join. And as you know, this year we have our first Rotary International Vice President, Ann Matthews, who is coming to Edmonton in a couple of weeks. Betty, that's your plug. Ann got the job not because she is a woman. Ann got the job because she is the most qualified person for that position. I could go on speaking about the history of Rotary and how well the Rotary Club of Calgary is intertwined with it, the projects and programs that you've done. But in 1972, then Rotary International President Roy Hickman from the Rotary Club of Birmingham, Alabama, said at the Rotary International Convention in Houston, and I quote, he said, "What has been accomplished by others is now Rotary history. It is our time to add to our glorious history. What is said of us in the future will be determined by you and me," end quote. So what will be said about you, me, the Rotary Club of Calgary, District 5360 in the future? I think, as we all know, just a few years ago, then Rotary International President John Kenny had a theme, "The future of Rotary is in your hands." So the future of Rotary is in our hands, but what are we going to do with it? As I said yesterday, we belong to the premier service organization in the world. And as I indicated yesterday as well, I use the word service with caution, for we are much more than a service organization. There is no other organization like us. We are 1.2 million members in over 200 countries, over 34,000 Rotary clubs. We are a force to be reckoned with. Our signature project, Polio Plus, has made us a significant humanitarian force. Rotary is changing. It has probably changed more in the last 5 to 10 years than it did in its first 90 years of existence. In 1917, Paul Harris said, and again I quote, "Rotary must make haste even to keep up, but we must do more. We must lead," end quote. The Rotary Club of Calgary has been a leader and is continuing to be one. In the early days of the club, the Rotary Club of Calgary, they organized the Community Chest, a major fundraiser where it took all the smaller community groups into one fundraiser and had one major fundraiser in the city, a precursor to our current day United Way. As we move forward, we must start to work with partners and partnerships, and you've heard that many times today and yesterday. And the Rotary Club of Calgary has been doing that for many years, currently with the Calgary Flames. They've done partnerships with the Stay in School programs with their local school boards. Internationally, they've partnered with the Centre for Affordable Water and Sanitation Technology. And this is a joint program with the Canadian government through CRCID, Canadian Rotary Collaboration for International Development. Just as an aside, CRCID, thanks to the Rotarians in Canada, will survive, and we are negotiating a new agreement with our Canadian government. The Rotary Club of Calgary is leading the way with our First Nations people as well. There are many Rotary clubs and districts in Canada that are doing work with our First Nations people, but not to the extent of Calgary and District 5360. The Tom Jackson Stay in School program is being looked at across Canada, and our Zone Institute in Toronto in October is hoping to highlight this program and make it available to clubs and districts across Canada. I don't think the average Rotarian understands the power of our organization. As individuals, you are stronger and more influential than you think. You have an influence as each individual Rotarian in this room that you don't realize. And I have a little bit of a story to highlight that. About 2 years ago, I live just north of Toronto in Barrie, Ontario. I'm sorry, I'm from the east. And I went to a multi-district PETS on Long Island in New York, distance of 600 miles. There was about 300 president-elects there. I did a presentation to the group, and afterwards a young man came up to me and said, "Can I tell you a story?" I said, "Okay." So this young man, and he was a little rough around the edges, but he said to me, he said, when I was young, when I was 16, I was kicked out of the house. I did not get along with my stepfather. And he said, I moved into a trailer park, into a trailer with some other young men. Now you can imagine the environment in this trailer park at that time, drugs, what have you. He got a job at a hall, a catering hall. And he said he basically worked for 3 meals a day and a little cash. But he said at this hall, there were 2 groups that met every week. And he said from this group, they treated him with respect. Not just him, but they treated everybody with respect. He said he got to listen to great speakers and he got to interact with people. When he was about 20, he told me that he had to make a decision which way his life was going to go. And obviously he was at a president-elect seminar as a president-elect, so you know which way he's going to go. And then he said to me, and of course I think as you realize that the 2 groups that met at this hall were 2 Rotary clubs. And then he said to me, I'm 600 miles from home, he said, "You don't recognize me, do you?" I said, "No, I'm sorry." He said, "I haven't always lived on Long Island." He said, "I'm from Barrie, Ontario." He said, "The 2 clubs that met at this hall were your club and the Rotary Club of Barrie." How do we know what influence we are going to have on people? How do we know where that effect, that ripple effect, ends? We can see our immediate beneficiaries, secondary beneficiaries, but do we know exactly where that ripple effect ends? And that is what we do as Rotarians when we live our lives as Rotarians. The work of Rotary International, as I've said many times, is not done by the board of directors. The work is not done at the zone level, and it's not done at the district level. I'm sorry, Pat. The work of Rotary is done every day by the 1.2 million Rotarians in the 34,000 Rotary clubs in the 200 countries, just like the Rotary Club of Calgary. I congratulate the club on what it has achieved in its first 100 years. You are leaders, not only in District 5360, but in all of Canada and worldwide. As John Kenny said, the future of Rotary is in your hands. I congratulate the Rotary Club of Calgary and all of their members, those who have gone before. Each generation of your membership has improved your legacy. You have engaged Rotary, and you have changed lives. Thank you very much. I now have the great honor, I will ask President Rep. Jerry to come forward, please. And I will also ask President-elect Ron Esch of the Rotary Club of Calgary to come forward, and we have a special banner to present to him.
Great.
It's like we rehearsed this, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great. That looks good. Super. Wow. Thank you.
Rotary Club of Calgary, 100 years. Ron, congratulations. Oh, you can do a picture. Oh, you hold.
Thank you very much, Brent. On behalf of our president, Eva Friesen, I'm happy to accept this banner on behalf of our club. Eva couldn't be with us tonight. And, you know, it's quite an occasion to have 100 years. And Eva, of course, is the 100th president. You said, how'd you like to be 101st? Well, you're looking at him. But you know what? It feels okay. That's going to be all right. I'm happy to do that. It's a great privilege for us to receive this honor on behalf of our club, and certainly the work that we have done, you've outlined that extremely well, and we're very, very proud. And you know, our charter members who came together to start the Rotary Club of Calgary were a very dedicated group of community individuals, and I guess they were all men back then, you know, but you know what? They had spouses and they had partners who helped a lot. And I can tell you, just from my own experience in our club in the 25 years I've been there, if it wasn't for our partners, we would not be the club that we are, and there's no question about that. In celebrating our 100 years, there's a tremendous legacy that we have to respect and we have to honor, and the current members have a great deal of responsibility to carry on and make the club continue to thrive and to be the force that it is within the community and within the Rotary world. We know that. And we know that we carry a history that we're very proud of. And we honestly believe that 100 years from today, when this club gets its 200-year banner, that they will be proud of the work that was done by all of us that went before them. And just in closing, we are having a gala on May the 3rd to celebrate our 100 years. And I know many of you have bought tickets for that event. It's going to be a great event. We are also putting out a history book, and that was a bit of a challenge because, you know, we don't have too many charter members left that we can call on to get that history, but it's going to be a great book, and we look forward to that event, and we look forward to the next 100 years, and we thank you very, very much for your support, your recognition, and all of you. We work together in Rotary for a very great cause, and thanks so much.